Live from New Delhi, watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Sheikh coming up in the next hour. World Economic Forum set to begin in Davos from Monday under the theme A Spirit of Dialogue. India to focus on digital innovation, sustainable energy transitions and infrastructure development. EU to convene emergency summit in Brussels to discuss potential retaliation if Trump imposes tariffs from February 1st, says committed to Denmark, Greenland sovereignty. UAE President Sheikh Mohamed bin Zayed Al Nahyan arrives in India on Monday to hold bilateral talks with Prime Minister Modi. Two high-speed trains derailed in southern Spain, at least 21 people killed. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez terms it as a night of deep pain. Our top story, the World Economic Forum Annual Meeting 2026 is set to begin in Davos on Monday. The 5-day summit will run until January 23rd. Event is being held under the theme A Spirit of Dialogue with a focus on cooperation in a contested world, innovation-led growth and inclusive development. The Swiss federal government, together with the WEF Foundation and its other partners, will contribute to the cost of WEF annual meeting security measures for the period 2025 to 27 as part of a three-tier finance model. The attendees include approximately 200 to 300 internationally protected persons such as heads of state and government, ministers and high-level representatives of international organizations. Security is like never before in this edition. More than 5,000 armed forces personnel, snipers, AI-powered drones and special tools to counter spywares and espionage are placed. More than 500 journalists are also at Davos to cover the event. Demonstrations are also part of this summit. This time, Swiss government are willing to authorize demonstrations, but it is essential that requirements to protect people, infrastructure and property are respected. So in order to hold a demonstration, detailed arrangements need to be made between the organizers and authorities. And India is set to mount one of its strongest representations at this year's World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, as union ministers, state chief ministers and more than 100 corporate leaders are attending. Union ministers Prahlad Joshi, K. Ram Mohan Naidu and Maharashtra's Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis have already arrived at Zurich in Switzerland. In a post on X, Devendra Fadnavis said he was deeply touched by the enthusiastic welcome and affectionate traditional greeting. Moving on, European leaders continue to weigh their response to US President Donald Trump's tariff threats over Greenland. The EU leaders will convene an extraordinary summit in Brussels on Thursday to discuss the bloc's response to US. The leaders have already decided to defend against any form of coercion while continuing to engage constructively with the United States. Meanwhile, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and other members said on Sunday the EU and Britain stand firm in their commitment to uphold the sovereignty of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark. On Saturday, Trump vowed to implement a wave of increasing tariffs on EU members Denmark, Sweden, France, Germany, the Netherlands and Finland, along with Britain and Norway from February 1st until the US is allowed to buy the vast Arctic island. Leaders of both Denmark and Greenland have insisted the island is not for sale and does not want to be part of the United States. All right, DD India's Preeti Kaur joins us for more on this. Hi Preeti, tell us what is expected to be discussed at this extraordinary EU summit in Brussels and why has Greenland become central to the debate?
Yes, good morning Abhishek and a warm good morning to all our viewers also. Because of its strategic location and rich natural resources, Greenland is being eyed by Trump, but Trump is not for the not the first president in history to eye Greenland. We have seen it in the past also, but at present this has become the bone of contention between the EU and the US. Trump has announced to impose 1% tariffs on the EU if an agreement is not being reached on Greenland. At the same time, this has brought in a strong rebuke from EU. President of European Council, Antonio Costas, has in fact called in for an emergency summit on this, and he has maintained that the security of Greenland and peace in the Arctic region, in the transatlantic region, cannot be taken away. And he has called in for stern action by the EU, and has at the same time maintained that dialogue between EU and US on this can be continued. So we'll have to see how the days ahead pan out when we talk of the EU summit, which has been called in by the President of European Council in the coming few days.
Preeti, 8 European nations have in fact publicly backed Denmark and Greenland. Tell us, how significant is this show of unity within Europe at this moment?
Yes, this is a very pertinent development, Abhishek, when we talk of these 8 EU countries coming together. 6 of these are part of the trade bloc of the European Union. Now, this is for the first time that we've seen such a rebuttal on part of the EU countries, of these respective 8 EU countries against the US. If on one side we have the trade sanctions announced by US President Donald Trump, to the tune of 10%, which could increase to 25% by 1st of June if an agreement is not reached. At the same time, on the other hand, the EU leaders are mulling to put into effect the anti-coercion agreement, which is also known as the trade bazooka. Now, this means that the EU markets will in fact, the US access to EU markets will be sanctioned, and also US services in the EU will be sanctioned ahead. At the same time, this has been initiated by France. It has been a call by France to implement the anti-coercion instrument. At the same time, EU is also mulling imposing 93 billion euros of retaliatory sanctions, which were earlier put off because of the trade truce that was reached between EU and US as a repercussion to the sanctions that were announced by US President Donald Trump earlier. So put all this together, this is a very strong rebuttal on behalf of the EU countries to come together and to put it across to the US President that Greenland is not up for sale, because earlier we've seen that diplomacy is what has been opted by the EU. Earlier also, when we talk of the trade war between EU and US, earlier when US President imposed sanctions on EU. At the same time also, diplomacy dialogue was opted by the EU countries when we talk of the Russia-Ukraine war also. But at this time is the first time, in fact, we see such a strong rebuttal on behalf of these EU countries who stand in unison against US President Donald Trump.
All right, Preeti, next few days will be very crucial. We'll leave it at that. Thank you for inputs. Moving on, the Syrian government and the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces agreed on an immediate and comprehensive ceasefire on all fronts on Sunday. Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara on Sunday announced a truce with the chief of Kurdish-led forces, taking almost full control of the country and dismantling the Kurdish-led forces that control the northeast for over a decade. Speaking in Damascus, Syrian President al-Shara said the deal would allow Syrian state institutions to reassert control over 3 eastern and northern governorates, al-Hasaka, Deir ez-Zor and Raqqa. Under the agreement signed by al-Shara and Abdi, Syrian authorities will take over civilian institutions, border crossings and oil and gas fields that have underpinned Kurdish self-rule. The agreement will also see the Kurdish administration and forces integrate into the state after months of stalled negotiations on the issue. And Syrian Kurdish leader Mazloum Abdi, in a televised address, said he agreed to the deal to avoid a broader conflict. Abdi said he is set to meet Shara in Damascus on Monday. Meanwhile, US envoy Tom Barrack on Sunday called the ceasefire agreed by the Syrian government and the Syrian Democratic Forces a pivotal inflection point. Barrack, who had met Kurdish leaders in Erbil in northern Iraq, was holding talks with Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara in Damascus over the latest developments, as Washington urged the two sides to de-escalate. Moving on, a collision between two high-speed trains carrying hundreds of passengers in southern Spain killed at least 21 people and injured more than 70 on Sunday, the officials said. In a post on X, the Spain Transport Minister Oscar Pionte said the impact has been terrible, causing the first two carriages of the Renfe train to be thrown off as a result. While Spain's Adif rail body said train between Malaga and Madrid went off the rails near Cordoba and slammed into a train coming from Madrid to Huelva. Adif has also suspended all rail services between Madrid and Andalusia. According to officials, rescue operations are ongoing and injured passengers have been taken to 6 different hospitals. Calling it a night of deep pain for Spain, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez expressed deep sorrow and offered sincerest condolences. In a post on X, Pedro Sanchez wrote, and I quote him here, "Today is a night of deep pain for our country owing to the tragic rail accident in Ademuz. I want to express my sincerest condolences to the families and loved ones of the victims. No word can alleviate such great suffering, but I want them to know that the whole country is by their side in this tough moment." Alright, still to come on this edition of DD India Newshour. Australia's parliament reconvenes early after a deadly Bondi Beach attack, observes silence and opens gun control debate. Deadly wildfires ravage southern Chile, killing many and forcing tens of thousands to flee. And Christians across Russia brave freezing waters to mark Epiphany.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Abhishek Mahaj and some more stories. Australia's parliament returned early on Monday with a moment of silence for those killed in the Bondi Beach mass shooting. Offering solidarity to everyone bearing the weight of trauma and loss in Parliament, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese made it clear to every Jewish Australian that they are not alone.
Join in mourning for the 15 souls whose lives and futures were so cruelly stolen. Our hearts also go out to everyone injured and traumatised. People who will always carry scars from what they suffered and saw on that dark night for our nation.
First responders and victims' families were also watched the day one of the session from the public gallery. Lawmakers had been due to return from their Southern Hemisphere summer break next month, but PM Albanese recalled Parliament 2 weeks early to commemorate victims and begin debate on gun control and hate speech reforms. 2 gunmen who police allege were inspired by Islamic State opened fire at a Jewish Hanukkah event on the city's iconic Bondi Beach last month, killing 15 people in country's worst such incident in decades. The attack shocked the nation and led to calls for tougher action on anti-Semitism and gun control, with Prime Minister Albanese pledging tougher action on both. Updates on Ukraine-Russia conflict now. Ukraine's top negotiator Rustem Umerov said on Sunday that talks with US officials on resolution of nearly 4-year-old conflict with Russia would continue at the World Economic Forum in the Swiss resort of Davos. Umerov, writing on social media platform Telegram, said 2 days of talks in Florida with a US team, including envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, President Donald Trump's son-in-law, had focused on security guarantees and a post-war recovery plan for Ukraine. Umerov further said the two sides had discussed in depth the two issues, focusing on practical mechanisms and carrying out and implementing them. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in an evening address on Sunday said that negotiations with the US side would continue next week. He said Kiev was fully informing Washington about the situation on the ground and Russia's continued strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, adding that Moscow showed no real interest in diplomacy. The Ugandan authorities partially restored internet services after the state-run Uganda Communications Commission ordered a shutdown following President Yoweri Museveni's election victory. The commission said the move was aimed at curbing misinformation, disinformation, electoral fraud and related risk. Several internet service providers said the regulator ordered the restoration of services. However, social media access remains blocked. The opposition condemned the shutdown as an attempt to control the electoral process. Election observers from the African Union and other regional blocs have also criticized the internet restrictions and the military's involvement in the election. In Portugal, socialist candidate Antonio José Seguro won the first round of the presidential election as per the early partial results. With votes from 95% of constituencies counted, Seguro was leading with 30.6% of the votes, while far-right contender André Ventura came in second with 24.2%. The Liberal candidate João Coutrim Figueiredo was in third place with 15.5%. Ventura and Seguro will face off on February 8 to decide who succeeds Conservative incumbent Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa. This is the first time in 4 decades that no candidate has won outright in the first round by securing more than 50% of the votes. Updates on anti-ICE protests in U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents continued their raids in St. Paul area of Minnesota. Increasingly tense confrontations between residents and federal officers have erupted in Minneapolis since Rennie Good was fatally shot by an ICE officer on January 7. In another incident, protesters, including postal workers, rallied outside a Minneapolis post office, calling on U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement to stop using postal property for its operations. The protest followed rising tensions after Trump warned to invoke the Insurrection Act, accusing state leaders of failing to rein in attacks on immigration officers. While the Pentagon has ordered about 1,500 active duty soldiers in Alaska to prepare for a possible deployment to Minnesota, the Insurrection Act enables use of the military to suppress armed rebellion or domestic violence. Guatemala's president has declared a 30-day state of siege to combat gang attacks that killed several police officers. Gang-led violence targeted police in several areas around Guatemala City after security forces regained control of the Venofian 1 detention center after prisoners took hostages to demand greater privileges for their gang leader. Shortly after control was restored, simultaneous attacks on police officers erupted in and around the capital. Under Guatemalan law, a state of siege can temporarily suspend or limit civil liberties and expand the powers of security forces in response to threats to public order. In Chile, at least 18 people were killed as uncontrolled wildfires tore through communities. Chilean President Gabriel Boric declared a state of catastrophe in Noble and Monbayo in the south of the country, authorizing the deployment of the armed forces to assist. After meeting with mayors of affected municipalities, Boric confirmed that more than 50,000 people have been displaced by blazes fanned by strong winds and hot weather. Fires have burned more than 8,000 hectares in the two regions, threatening communities and prompting evacuation orders. Much of Chile was under extreme heat alerts, with temperatures expected to reach up to 38 degrees Celsius. Chile and Argentina have faced extreme temperatures since early this year, with devastating wildfires in Argentina's Patagonia this month. South Africa has declared a national disaster after weeks of heavy rains triggered deadly floods, killing dozens and displacing thousands across the region. South Africa on Sunday declared a national disaster as severe flooding caused by prolonged heavy rainfall killed more than 30 people in the Limpopo and Mpumalanga provinces. Rivers overflowed, destroying homes, while thousands fled to neighboring Mozambique for safety. Rescue teams are searching for survivors as water levels begin to recede in some areas, including the Kruger National Park, which is set to partially reopen. In Pakistan, at least 6 people were killed and dozens are missing after a massive fire broke out at a shopping mall in Karachi, which led to the back part of the complex collapsing. The fire broke out at shops inside the mall on Saturday night around 10 p.m. While 60 to 70% of the blaze has been controlled, search and rescue operations continue as fear persists that people may be trapped in the building. 6 bodies have been recovered so far and handed over to the families. A firefighter also lost his life during the rescue operation. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Nepal Kathmandu Valley's air quality has worsened this winter, hitting very unhealthy levels in mornings and evenings. Over 1,000 brick kilns resumed operations on January 15, coinciding with peak demand for construction. Hospitals are seeing more respiratory cases linked to pollution. Heavy traffic, open waste burning and stagnant air in the valley basin trap pollutants. Winter smog intensified by temperature inversion peaks from December to February, with AQI and particulates highest during evening rush hours. 15 years after Fukushima tragedy, Japan prepares to restart the world's biggest nuclear plant. Kashiwazaki Kariwa nuclear power plant, the world's largest, is set to be restarted by Tokyo Electric Power Company on Tuesday as the nation seeks to bolster its domestic power sources. The plant, located around 300 kilometers northeast of Tokyo on the coast of the Sea of Japan, was shut down after a powerful tsunami destroyed the Fukushima Daiichi reactor in 2011. Both are operated by Tokyo Electric Power Company. The peaceful coastal area encompassing Kashiwazaki city and Kariwa village, home to around 80,000 people, is gaining attention as the restart of the plant's unit number 6 would be the first for TEPCO since the Fukushima disaster. TEPCO was looking to restart unit number 7 later and possibly decommission the other 5. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. Christians across Russia marked Epiphany by plunging into icy waters on Sunday evening, a day before the church formally observes the festival. The ritual commemorates the baptism of Jesus Christ in the River Jordan, with believers bathing to symbolically cleanse their sins. Despite extreme cold, including temperatures near minus 20 degrees Celsius in parts of Siberia, devotees took part, describing the experience as spiritually uplifting and energizing. Hungary's Lake Balaton froze thick enough for safe skating on Sunday, bringing joy to skaters after days of sub-zero temperatures. Central Europe's biggest lake last saw such freeze a decade ago. Authorities confirm ice thickness of 12 to 15 centimeters near the southern shore, meeting safety norms. However, officials caution that ice remains uneven and risky elsewhere, urging people to skate only close to the southern shoreline and avoid deeper areas. Team Italy unveiled its official uniforms for the 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Olympics during Milan Fashion Week with a special showcase at an Emporio Armani flagship store. Model displayed the athletes' competition kits and ceremonial outfits as celebrities and former sports stars attend the event, which also featured striking window displays and a light show highlighting the upcoming games. American epic science fiction film Avatar: Fire and Ash continued its strong run at the North American box office, staying at number 1 for the 5th straight week over the long holiday weekend. The film earned $17.2 million from Friday to Monday. In other news, Mercosur and the European Union signed a historic trade agreement in Paraguay over the weekend, concluding more than 25 years of negotiations. The signed deal will boost trade, investment and cooperation between Mercosur and the EU, but there is also opposition to the pact within certain sanctions of Europe. Farmers in France and Ireland warn the deal could expose local agriculture to unfair competition.
Mercosur and the European Union signed a landmark trade agreement in Asuncion. creating the world's largest free trade area, covering more than 700 million people and nearly 20% of global GDP, with the main objective to cut tariffs on most goods traded between the two blocs.
We are creating the largest free trade zone in the world. This agreement sends a very strong message to the world. It reflects a clear and deliberate choice. We choose fair trade over tariffs. We choose a productive, long-term partnership over isolation.
Relations between the EU and Mercosur date back to 1999, when a framework cooperation agreement came into force. After years of stalled talks, progress resumed in recent years. On 9th January 2026, the EU Council approved both for signature, paving the way for Saturday's ceremony in Paraguay.
But I want to insist on something. It is fundamental that during the implementation stage, the spirit of what was negotiated is preserved. The incorporation of mechanisms that restrict the access, such as quotas, safeguards, or measures of equivalent effect, will significantly reduce the economic impact of the agreement and will undermine its essential objective. We have to ensure in our parliaments that this does not happen.
The new EU-Mercosur agreement is critical for both sides, as it is expected to yield many beneficial results like boosting trade and investment, supporting economic growth and job creation, enhances competitiveness by securing supply chains and diversifying sources of energy and raw materials. Radical shift with unprecedented commitments to fight climate change, including tackling deforestation and reinforcing political, economic and cultural ties between the two regions. The deal has also sparked opposition within the European Union. In France, farmers had protested in Paris, warning the deal could expose local agriculture to unfair competition. In Ireland, thousands of Irish farmers, many of whom travelled across the country on tractors, protested against the European Union's Mercosur trade deal. As the agreements move towards ratification, both the European Union and Mercosur say they hope the deal will boost trade, investment and cooperation across two continents. Bureau Report, DD India.
All right, still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Polish Deputy PM arrives in New Delhi to hold talks with External Affairs Minister S. Sheikh on India-Poland strategic partnership. India marks 21st Raising Day of NDRF, celebrating 20 years of service by the nation's frontline disaster response force. Music and light displays dazzle devotees on 4th day of Mahakal festival in Ujjain. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sheikh. Recap of our top stories. World Economic Forum set to begin in Davos from Monday under the theme A Spirit of Dialogue. India to focus on digital innovation, sustainable energy transitions and infrastructure development. EU to convene emergency summit in Brussels to discuss potential retaliation if Trump imposes tariffs from February 1st, says committed to Denmark, Greenland sovereignty. UAE President Sheikh Mohamed bin Zayed Al Nahyan arrives in India on Monday to hold bilateral talks with PM Modi. And two high-speed trains derailed in southern Spain, at least 21 people killed. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez terms it as a night of deep pain. UAE President Sheikh Mohamed bin Zayed Al Nahyan will pay an official visit to India on Monday at the invitation of Prime Minister Modi. This will be his third visit to India since assuming office as UAE President and the fifth in the past decade, reflecting the growing momentum in high-level bilateral engagements between the two nations. The visit is expected to further deepen the comprehensive strategic partnership and allow discussions on regional and global issues of mutual interest. And Polish Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski arrived in New Delhi on Monday after attending the Jaipur Literature Festival in Rajasthan. The Polish Deputy PM will meet India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Monday to discuss India-Poland strategic partnership. Radosław Sikorski visited Jaipur from January 17 to 18. At the Jaipur Literature Festival, Polish Deputy PM attended a session titled A Continent in Crisis, Russia, Ukraine and the European Story. The Australian High Commissioner to India, Philip Green, has said the ties between India and Australia have never been better, praising Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership for driving dramatic steps forward. Speaking to DD India correspondent Lakshya Arya, the Australian High Commissioner said that the relation between India and Australia have grown more stronger in the last decade. Take a listen.
Right in the JLF, we have Philip Green, the High Commissioner from Australia. Hi, Philip.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for talking to DD India. Speak about the bilateral relations about the India and Australia.
Yeah.
We see that in the last 1 decade, the relations has become more stronger. What's your honor?
That's true, and we're very excited that we had the first free trade agreement that India did with a major country. We're very excited that the military exercises between our countries have tripled over the last 10 years, and we're very excited that the Indian population of Australia, now more than 1 million people, that's a lot in my country, that's more than 4%, fastest growing foreign population in Australia, making a big contribution to our society. Those things are impelling our bilateral relations forward fast. So in this moment of global contestation, where there is so much uncertainty in the world, one thing that remains rock solid is the partnership between Australia and India. And frankly, with all that contestation, India becomes even more important to Australia.
Even though in the last 4 to 5 years, as per the global geopolitical scenarios, India has become, supporter and was a supporter, always been supporter of peace and non-violence. In the current scenario, whether it's about the EU, whether it's about the geopolitical scenarios in Russia, Ukraine, or any other scenarios, how do you think that India is playing a vital role in global peace?
Well, look, Australia and India both firmly believe in a rules-based order. That's important for us as small and medium-sized countries like Australia. India is a great power, but for us, in a world where the mighty are showing their ability to influence things more directly by power, for us, the multilateral order and a rules-based order which ensures that small and medium-sized countries have their place in the global scheme of things becomes even more important. And in that, Australia and India are vital partners, especially in our shared region, the Indo-Pacific.
The bilateral relations of India and Australia has become more stronger in the last 1 decade, but also the literature and art can play a vital role in current global scenario to have a peace. With camera person, Prasad, this is Lakshya Arya for DD India.
And the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, partnering with Maharashtra government, is holding an industry consultation workshop at Yashwantrao Chauhan Academy of Development Administration on Monday under the PM Setu initiative. PM Setu, that is Pradhan Mantri Skilling and Employability Transformation, is a landmark initiative announced by Prime Minister in line with the vision of Viksit Bharat. 50 companies from sectors like construction, textiles, automobiles, FMCG, electronics, oil and gas and renewable energy will participate. PM Setu seeks to modernize 1,000 government ITIs across the country through a hub and spoke approach, with 200 hub ITIs supported for advanced infrastructure and modern training facilities and 800 spoke ITIs extending training reach across districts. The scheme positions ITIs as government-owned but industry-managed institutions, enabling demand-driven training, apprenticeships and stronger placement linkages through cluster-based partnerships with anchor industry. PM Setu is poised to be a pivotal moment in India's skilling journey, redefining how government and industry collaborate to build high-quality vocational institutions, shape future-ready curricula and create a robust talent pipeline for emerging growth sectors. Moving on, the PM Vishwakarma Hut 2026 exhibition organized by Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises is underway in New Delhi. The exhibition is dedicated exclusively to artisans and craftspeople under the PM Vishwakarma scheme. It provides a prominent platform for artisans to exhibit and market their handcrafted products to national and international buyers, stakeholders and the general public. More than 117 artisans from all states and union territories across the country are participating in the event, making it a pan-India representation of diverse traditional skills and crafts. The representatives from foreign missions are also visiting the PM Vishwakarma Hut 2026. The event will culminate on 31st of this month and will remain open to the public from 10:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. A four-member Indian delegation led by Sanjeev Kumar, Secretary for Defence Production, is visiting Kenya to enhance bilateral defence manufacturing capabilities. The visit aims to promote India's defence exports and foster industrial cooperation. The highlight will be India's participation in the 3rd India-Kenya Defence Exhibition in Nairobi. Exhibition is organised under the Brand India scheme of Department of Defence Production. The event will witness participation from 20 Indian defence companies from both public and private sectors, showcasing a wide range of defence products and services. Union Minister of State for External Affairs Kirti Vardhan Singh, who is on an official visit to Egypt, met Governor of Luxor Abdul Mottaleb Mamdou Amara. Both the leaders discussed enhancing cooperation in tourism and collaboration in hotel management, hospitality and capacity building, leveraging Luxor's rich heritage and expertise. Minister welcomed the support from Luxor Governorate for promotion of Indian culture in Luxor. Today marks the 21st blazing day of the National Disaster Response Force, India's frontline warriors in times of crisis and natural disasters. On this day, the NDRF completes 20 years of dedicated service, standing tall as the nation's most trusted disaster response force.
Every disaster leaves behind destruction, but it also brings forward heroes in uniforms. Today, as the nation marks the 21st blazing day of NDRF, India salutes the force that arrives when hope seems lost. Raised on 19th January 2006, the National Disaster Response Force was formed under the Disaster Management Act of 2005. After the devastating lessons of natural calamities made it clear that India needed a specialized rapid response force for disasters. From floods and cyclones to earthquakes, landslides, industrial accidents and building collapses, the NDRF has become the backbone of India's disaster response system. Highly trained, well-equipped and always on standby, NDRF teams are often the first to reach ground zero. In the most hostile conditions, raging waters, unstable debris or collapsed structures, NDRF personnel risk their own lives to save others. Every operation is a race against time, and every life saved is a victory. Over the years, the force has played a crucial role during major disasters across the country, saving thousands of lives and helping communities rebuild after tragedy. Beyond rescue operations, the NDRF also focuses on disaster preparedness and awareness, training civilians and local authorities to respond better when emergencies strike. With specialized battalions, modern equipment and increasing participation of women responders, the NDRF continues to evolve, matching new challenges posed by climate change and urban disasters. Over the years, disaster management has received renewed focus at the national level. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, The NDRF has seen great emphasis on capacity building, modern equipment, specialized training and faster deployment. From strengthening early response mechanism to improving coordination with state agencies and armed forces, the government's push has helped the NDRF respond more effectively to large-scale and complex disasters across the country. On this Raising Day, the nation remembers that when disaster strikes, help is never far away. Because for NDRF, service before self is not just a motto, it is a mission. In New Delhi, Akshay Dongre, DD India.
And the National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, has designed the prestigious at-home invitation for this year's Republic Day reception at Rashtrapati Bhavan, showcasing the rich craft heritage of the northeastern states. Here's a report.
The ceremonial at-home invitation for Republic Day 2026 is more than just an invite. It is a tribute to India's living craft traditions. Designed by the National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, the invitation kit highlights the artistry of over 350 artisans from 8 northeastern states of India. Commissioned by Rashtrapati Bhavan, the project brings together traditional crafts from Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim and Tripura.
Some of them, like this Monpa, Honorable Prime Minister mentioned in his Mann Ki Baat. So, and understanding their process, we developed some small pieces which can go along with the theme, overall theme. And this has been presented. Once we got the go-ahead, then the mammoth activity started. So in this case, since it is a northeast, all the product been done in their respective cluster. Almost more than 350 artisans have been worked in this for 45 days.
Bamboo, a material deeply rooted in the region's ecology and culture, forms the core of the invitation design. From woven bamboo covers and scrolls to handcrafted ornaments and textiles, each element reflects sustainable practices and indigenous knowledge systems. The invitation kit has a unique bamboo wall hanging scroll that unfolds to reveal handcrafted artifacts representing each state.
We are making invitation kit which represent India's craft and culture, which are more than 5,000 years old. And through this one initiative where the invitation kit, the Honorable President Office showed that how government can visualize the invitation kit which represent Bharat thought process in Bharat, the history of Bharat.
The invitation kit features iconic crafts such as Lepcha nettle weaving from Sikkim, green bamboo weaves from Meghalaya, the Gogona bamboo joha from Assam, cane and bamboo jewelry from Tripura, rare wild fiber textiles from Nagaland, Ponchai hand-woven textiles from Mizoram, and long pea black pottery from Manipur. The project was developed through extensive fieldwork and coordination with remote villages in the northeast.
ये कंचनजंगा माउंटेन का एक रूप है, तो ये लेप्चा कम्युनिटी का एक थॉट प्रोसेस है कि वहाँ पे उनके कंचनजंगा की स्नो से आया हुआ पानी से वो कम्युनिटी बनी हुई है, तो उसका ये एक सिग्निफिकेंस है.
Handloom weaving, central to everyday life in the region and a major source of livelihood for women artisans, is highlighted through a hand-woven textile belt attached to the invitation cover. As India prepares to celebrate its 77th Republic Day, the at-home invitation stands as a tribute to the Ashtalakshmi states.
A showcase of India's northeast, its indigenous craft, tradition, and also a legacy which is completely displayed in this invitation kit, and something also that people who receive this will be cherishing or probably will be seeing it on their walls once they receive these invitation kits. With camera person Lakshman Rajput, this is Meghna Dey for DD India from Ahmedabad, Gujarat.
Let's now take a look at other stories making news. The Tourism Department has launched ski courses at Sonmarg in Srinagar to nurture young talent in Kashmir. The initiative aims to promote winter sports, provide professional training to local youth and strengthen adventure tourism in the region. Light music and band performances enthralled devotees on the fourth day of Mahakal festival at Sri Mahakal Mahalok in Madhya Pradesh's Ujjain. A large number of visitors gathered to enjoy the cultural performances, adding to the spiritual and festive atmosphere of the ongoing celebrations. North Indian city of Saharanpur is gearing up for Basant Panchami, the spring festival, with colourful kites ready to fill the skies. While kite flying excitement is high, authorities have stepped up safety measures, strictly banning dangerous Chinese manja. Police teams are on alert and civic bodies have installed metal wires at key spots to prevent accidents. Kite sellers say demand is rising, with affordable options attracting buyers ahead of the spring festival on January 23rd. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Gold silver hit record highs as tariff tensions rise after Trump's Greenland threat. New Zealand makes history with first ODI series win against India. And La Paz kicks off carnival season with traditional ceremony.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Johar. Johar. अरे it fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout हो गया.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sheikh. Business updates now. Global markets are facing volatility after President Donald Trump vowed to slap tariffs on 8 European nations until the US is allowed to buy Greenland. US markets are closed on Monday for Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day, which means a delayed reaction on Wall Street. However, investors say it is on track for a fall. Britain's FTSE 100 index was on track to fall by 0.9% on Monday. In European markets, Euro Stoxx 50 futures and DAX futures both fell 1.1%, while Japan's Nikkei lost 1.0% and MSCI's broadest index of Asia Pacific shares outside Japan did 0.1%. Notably, hopes that the tariff situation has calmed down for this year have been dashed for now, and investors find themselves in the same situation as same time last year. Meanwhile, gold and silver both jumped to all-time highs, while oil slipped on concerns about what an all-out trade war between the US and Europe could mean for global growth and demand. Yellow metal climbed 1.6%, with registering rise of nearly 8% in January after gaining 64% last year, while white metal advanced 4.4%. Talking of oil, prices were flat amid lingering concerns about a potential US strike on Iran, as a US Navy aircraft carrier group was expected to arrive in the Persian Gulf this week. Brent was little change at $64.19 a barrel, while US crude rose 0.1% to $59.52 per barrel. Sports updates now. We'll start with cricket. New Zealand scripted history as they won their maiden one-day series in India following their 41-run victory in the third and final match in Indore. The visitors won the three-match series 2-1 after they bundled out India for 296. Virat Kohli scored a splendid 100 but ran out of partners while chasing 338 runs for victory. Kohli scored 124 and shared two crucial partnerships with Nitish Kumar Reddy and Harshit Rana, but could not take the host over the line. Both Reddy and Harshit Rana scored half-centuries after India lost 4 wickets for 71 runs. Earlier, Darryl Mitchell and Glenn Phillips struck centuries as New Zealand posted 337 for the loss of 8 wickets. Mitchell made 137 and Phillips hit 106 to take the attack to the opposition bowlers. Vidarbha scripted history in Bengaluru, defeating Saurashtra by 38 runs to clinch their maiden Vijay Hazare trophy. The hero of the final, Atharva Taide, smashed a brilliant 128 of 118 balls, anchoring two massive partnerships with Aman Mukhare and Yash Rathore to propel Vidarbha to a formidable 317. Saurashtra's Ankur Pawar was the most economical with 65 runs for 4 wickets. However, Saurashtra's chase faltered early despite a resilient 93-run stand between Prerak Mankad and Chirag Jani. With our space duo, Yash Thakur and Nachiket Bhute dismantled the opposition to bundle them out for 279. While Taide earned Player of the Match honours, Aman Mukhade was named Player of the Tournament for this staggering 814-run season. A clinical performance marks a landmark era for Vidarbha cricket. The Tata Steel Masters in Netherlands began dramatically after a protest delayed play. Top seed Arjun Erigese scored a commanding win over compatriot R. Pragyananda in just 32 moves, while world champion D. Gukesh drew a marathon 78-move battle against Uzbekistan Javokhir Sindarov. Hans Niemann of the United States capitalized on an early blunder by Vladimir Fedoseev to secure the first victory of the event. Germany's Vincent Keimer also triumphed, defeating Dutch star Anish Giri. India's Arvind Chidambaram drew with Matthias Blue Bomb, setting up an exciting tournament after a tense opening day. Football now. Senegal claimed their second Africa Cup of Nations title with a dramatic 1-0 win over host Morocco in Rabat. The final turned chaotic when Morocco's Brahim Diaz missed a controversial penalty deep into stoppage time. His weak chip easily saved by goalkeeper Edouard Mendy. That moment shifted momentum. In extra time, Sadio Mane won possession and set up Idrissa Gana Gueye, who released Papa Gueye to smash home the decisive strike past Yassine Bounou. Morocco pressed hard, hitting the crossbar, but Senegal held firm. The victory, their second in 3 editions, capped a tense night marked by crowd unrest and disputed refereeing decisions. For Senegal, it was history again, while Morocco's 50-year wait for continental glory continues. Now, Real Sociedad shocked La Liga leader Barcelona with a 2-1 win in San Sebastian, ending the Catalans' 11-match winning run. Mikel Oyarzabal volleyed home the opener in the 32nd minute before Marcus Rashford equalized with a header in the 70th. Just a minute later, Gonzalo Guedes restored Sociedad's lead with a stunning finish. Barcelona pressed hard, striking the woodwork 5 times, but goalkeeper Alex Ramiro stood firm. Sociedad finished with 10 men after Carlos Soler's late red card, yet held for a famous victory. Despite the setback, Hansi Flick's Barcelona remained top with 49 points, one ahead of Real Madrid. Villarreal and Atletico Madrid trailed further behind on 41, keeping the title race alive. And Bolivia's city of La Paz launched 40 days of carnival on Sunday with the traditional Necentero del Pepino ceremony, a symbolic ritual marking the rebirth of city's iconic mischievous character Pepino. Once revived, the Pepino leapt from his coffin wearing red and green, the colors of the La Paz flag, igniting the first major celebration of 2026 carnival season as folkloric groups dance alongside city officials. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sheikh From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.